Warning, this video contains spoilers. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey everybody, Jon Favreau here with another video. Continuing my couple of videos on my dislike for Iron Man 3. Pretty much this is following up on my rant video where I discussed what I didn't like about this movie. And heads up, there will be spoilers in this video for Iron Man 3. So if you don't want to spoil the movie, if you haven't seen it yet, turn the video off now in case I haven't put a disclaimer on it or in the title, which I would do anyway. But so this has been kind of tormenting me for a couple of days now, ever since I saw Iron Man 3, of how bad this movie was in terms of respect to the source material, to the Iron Man comics. And I got to thinking that Jon Favreau, who was originally going to return as director for this threequel, finish out his trilogy, the Iron Man trilogy, before Marvel decided to kick him out of the director's chair because Iron Man 2 did not perform as well as they had hoped, even though it still made a ton of money, and thus leading to Shane Black being hired as director, and the rest is history. But I just got to thinking, how would Iron Man 3 be different if Jon Favreau had still been in the director's chair? And so I was actually really inspired to do this video. I don't know if anybody else has done a video like this. I'm not trying to rip anybody off. This is just something that I feel strongly on and I really wanted to share with you guys. So pretty much I typed up a list of 25 different points of and this is pure speculation and opinion too. This is not an official interview with Jon Favreau or anything. But 25 points of things that I believe that Jon Favreau would have done differently had he been the director. So, yeah, let's get right onto this list. Like I said, it's 25, and knowing me, I like to talk about the points and stuff. So, this could go on for quite a bit. So, number one. Well, first off, I'd like to say that Favreau stated on record that the Mandarin would have been his choice of villain in Iron Man 3 if he were the director, so that would not have changed. That was something that he had in mind from the get-go, probably since he did Iron Man 1, but again, that's just my speculation. So that is something that would have stayed the same. Number two, I think that he would have cut out the Extremis storyline. Personally, I felt that it was not the best choice to be the major kind of plot device in the movie, and I personally think that Jon Favreau would not have done that. Jon Favreau definitely, judging by the first two movies, I can tell that he has more of a taste for classic Marvel comics than he does modern comics, even though he likes to bring that kind of obviously bring it into modern times. So I don't think that the Extremis storyline would have been the way he would have gone in terms of the overall plot. Number three, I thought I would have cut out the weird Christmas theme that was kind of overarching through the movie, which felt like Marvel intended this movie to be released near Christmas with all the Christmas stuff, and I personally do not think that he would have included that, and the child Tony friendship. That all just feels like something that would have been very opposite to what Favreau would have done. Number four, he would have had Tony in the suit more than having him remote control it all the time. Judging by Favreau's past, the first two Iron Man movies, that he likes to put Tony in real danger. Obviously, from the first Iron Man movie, where Tony is captured by the terrorists and held hostage and stuff, and always at the risk of being killed. In the second one, the racetrack, getting publicly embarrassed and near beaten by Whiplash. and a choice that Shane Black made in Iron Man 3 to have the Mark 42 suit be remote controlled really takes a lot of the danger and suspense and excitement out of being watching a superhero movie, especially the one sequence where Air Force One, the terrorists, I dare say Mandarin terrorists, blew a hole in Air Force One, and all of the flight crew and stuff are all flying out. And Iron Man, it was a great scene. He was like, flying out, and he's telling everybody to work together, grab on to people who are like falling out of the airplanes, working together to help save each other's lives. And it was a really great scene. But then it's like, oh, Tony was never in the suit there. He was just on the boat with Rhodey, remote controlling it, basically. And that really takes the imminent danger out of the character when you do something like that. So that's something that I think Favreau would have changed. Let's see. Keep Sir Ben Kingsley. Now, I believe, if my memory does serve me correct, that Mr. Kingsley was in talks to be the Mandarin before Jon Favreau was cut out of the movie as director. So that, I think, definitely would have stayed the same in both versions. Ben Kingsley, he's a great actor. Obviously, you can list all of his wonderful movies, and so he definitely has incredible talent. But in Iron Man 3, the one that we got, the script just wasn't there for him. That even his tremendous talent couldn't make it better. Couldn't make his role and his lines better. So, as we saw in the first half of the movie, Ben Kingsley, he could definitely do an incredibly intimidating villain. Very, very frightening. Very, like, I don't care what you do, I'm going to spit in your face and call you out in front of everybody. So a very intimidating villain. Definitely was quite intriguing until the midpoint of the movie where we find out he's just Russell Brand in disguise. So Ben Kingsley, if they had just kept him as the villain, that would have been phenomenal. And going on next in the list is have Mandarin targeting Tony specifically and keep the whole mansion attack in the movie. One thing that was very misleading about the advertisements for this movie is it made you think that, Tony or Mandarin is specifically targeting Tony for something that he did or in the past, or something they did recently, maybe something in the Avengers we don't even know, and it made it seem like it was really personal, like Mandarin was specifically had it out for Tony, and obviously that was not the case in the movie. It was just kind of a general terrorist attacks on the United States, and so that was disappointing. I was hoping to see something more kind of an intimate antagonism between the two characters than what we got. And the whole mansion attack, I think that Favreau probably would have kept that because, last movie in a trilogy, major stuff can happen. You don't feel afraid. You don't feel afraid to break some things, obviously. So I think that would have been kept in the movie, or something similar. That something of Tony's, something very close to him, something very personal that's been attached to him that we've seen throughout the movies getting destroyed. I think that would have been kept in Favreau's version. And 7, this is the biggest one on my list, is have the classic sorcerer mystic type Mandarin in the movie. That would have been the big thing. Like I said, Favreau, judging by the past two Iron Man movies, the first two Iron Man movies, he is definitely more of a kind of classic comic book guy. And so updating Mandarin into an almost Osama bin Laden type terrorist, I think is something that he would not have done. I think that we would have gotten a more classic Mandarin, which leads me into another one on my list that the rings, if in the comics, in case you didn't know, the Mandarin's rings aren't just jewelry they wears like he was in the movie. They're actually very powerful rings that, while might give the disguise of being magic, they're actually highly advanced alien technology, which that would have worked perfect in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they have stated that magic so much does not exist as incredibly advanced scientific technology. Like they said with the Thor movies, that the Asgardians, they do not possess magic per se, it's just extremely advanced science. And even in the Thor movie, Thor says that, what's the line that, to you it is magic, but to us it is science, or something, I come from a place where they're one and the same. So, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, magic is just extremely advanced science. And the Mandarin in the comics is already that. It's extremely advanced science. The alien technology, he discovers like a crashed alien ship in the Valley of Spirits, which is a region in made-believe region in China that's supposed to be like a very ghostly region in the comics. And he discovers that crashed alien ship, and using the technology and stuff, I can't remember if he actually finds the rings or if he makes them himself, but something along those lines. So that would have worked perfectly, and they could have tied that back to the Avengers as having this be a crashed Chitauri scout ship from the Siege of New York and the Avengers. That would have worked perfectly, and it would have also given another element of continuity with the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It would have provided a connection to the Avengers, which is a big one, which is one that I'm hoping that we see in Thor 2 and Captain America 2, that they definitely reference the Avengers more than Iron Man 3 did, where it was just kind of like Tony has the occasional anxiety attack if he hears the words New York. So that would have worked perfectly if maybe a possible theory, and this is just my kind of personal theory, throwing it out there, that maybe the Mandarin, obviously they would have to update the origin of the character. In the comics, he's like a pre-communist revolution, wealthy Chinese businessman who hates the West and stuff, so it was very kind of like, an anti-communist type of story, because he represents kind of like the evil communism and stuff. So obviously they would have had to update the Mandarin's character regardless, if Jon Favreau was directing, or if Shane Black directed like he did. And a possible explanation, maybe he was an archaeologist that's excavating in the Valley of Spirits, and he comes across, and maybe this flashback sequence takes place at the same time of the Avengers, and we see the Chitauri ship crash, and he goes to investigate, and he discovers these things. Or another thing is that if they decide to keep with updating Mandarin to be this kind of almost Osama bin Laden type terrorist, that they could have had it where, and again connecting back to the Avengers, that he was provided this Chitauri technology by Thanos as a way to kind of increase chaos, to just cause trouble on Earth, preemptive to whatever he's going to do in the Avengers 2. So that could have been a great way to tie back to the Avengers as well, and kind of have another kind of like post-credit scene with like Thanos going like, it did not work, but next time, that kind of, just something along those lines. So those are two possible theories. Again, just my theories, throwing it out there, that I thought would have been excellent ways to connect Iron Man 3 back to the Avengers and tease future Marvel movies, especially Avengers 2. And let's see, getting back to my list, because I kind of covered a few in this one little bit. 11 is that he would have been corrupted by the technology if he were a good guy to begin with. If they wanted to keep the whole good guy gone bad thing like they did with Killian, I think that was his name. If they wanted to keep that whole aspect, then they could have done it like, oh no, he was just an innocent guy until he was corrupted by this technology. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. That kind of thing. And 12, it would have been a personal war against Tony Stark. That's something, like I said earlier, that I really wanted to see. Is I wanted to see, these two characters just absolutely, like, go to town, like, trying to absolutely destroy each other. The whole arch nemesis aspect. When I see a villain in a movie, in a superhero movie, that is supposed to be the hero's arch villain, not just any other villain, the arch villain, that's the absolute nemesis, the complete opposite of the hero. You want to see these two fight each other practically to the death. I mean, no other way to put it. And that's something that we didn't get. The Mandarin was just a ploy. He was a non-entity in the movie, and I really wanted to see that personal war against Tony. I really wanted to see the Mandarin have a reason to hate Tony as well, and not just Tony called him out in an internet video, and now he's going to send a helicopter to blow his house up. So have a good reason for the villain to hate the hero. That's something that you need in a great superhero movie. 13 is I want War Machine, and I think Jon Favreau wanted War Machine too. Iron Patriot, they did that kind of as just kind of pretty much to show like, oh, it's Marvel, because if you have any knowledge of the comic books, Iron Patriot in the main Marvel universe is nothing like what he was in Iron Man 3. Iron Patriot is actually Norman Osborn, who you may know better as the Green Goblin, or at least he used to be, a Spider-Man villain. And during his little reign as the head of Hammer, which was a reformed version of S.H.I.E.L.D. at the time, this was a few years ago in Marvel Comics, and for a lot of the same reasons as they did in the movie, where pretty much the American government wanted its own kind of government-sanctioned Avengers, and so the Iron Patriot was kind of a combination of Iron Man and Captain America for the team, and it was headed by Norman Osborn, and it was the Dark Avengers, and they weren't exactly good guys, in case you can't tell by the name and the leader. But yeah, so I think that was pretty much just a ploy by Marvel to show that, like, oh, hey, it's the Marvel universe. And so in a Jon Favreau version of Iron Man 3, I believe he would have just kept with War Machine, because they are two very distinctly different characters, and I much prefer War Machine. It just sounds cooler too. I mean, come on. We all know Jon Favreau is all about being cool. So moving on, more references to the Avengers, which is something I've already talked about, is that it felt very minor in how Iron Man 3 connected to the Avengers. They referenced New York a few times, sure, and Tony had his anxiety attacks, which, don't get me wrong, I'm not a medical professional. This could be completely accurate to a real-life anxiety attack. I've never had one. I don't know anybody that's had one. But as a moviegoer, that just wasn't that fun to watch. Just Tony to just freak out randomly. Even he did it a few times, even when there was no mention of New York or the Avengers. So, and when you think about it, he's been through not many, but he's been through quite a few near-death experiences in his time in the Iron Man movies, and like seeing like, okay, why is he just now just getting all freaked out about what happened in the Avengers? He was trapped in a cave and held hostage by terrorists for several months, always in constant threat of being killed. And he saw like a person that grew to become one of his best friends die in his arms, and falling through a wormhole is giving him PTSD. It's continuity, and that's actually later on in my list. I'll talk about continuity. So yeah, let's continue on. 15. I would have liked to seen maybe a reference to something that, like some of the Mandarin's kind of like underlings, like Ultimo, which is a robot that he built. He's built many different versions of to combat Iron Man, and see something like that. Some more, at least, references to the comics. And like I said, Jon Favreau, he's definitely a big classic Marvel Comics guy, so I definitely think that he would have given us something like Ultimo or something similar, something that the Mandarin may have created or invented over the years to combat Iron Man, that we would have seen that. And 16, another thing on my list that I wanted a big epic conclusion of Iron Man versus the Mandarin. We didn't get that. The Mandarin was just, again, an actor that was paid to play a part. And I guess you could say that Killian was the Mandarin, but no, that is not the Mandarin. That is not my Mandarin. I don't know whose Mandarin that is, but I do not want him. So we definitely did not get an epic Mandarin versus Iron Man showdown like we were promised in the advertisements for it. So, and moving on to the next point on my list, 17, that it could have still been a hand-to-hand showdown. When you get the image of Mandarin in your head, you're probably thinking of Ben Kingsley. It was kind of a older dude that would not last a second against Iron Man in a fight. But if Jon Favreau would have directed it, and he would have given us the classic, more comic book faithful Mandarin. In the comics, Mandarin is a highly skilled martial artist. He is well practiced in several different types of Chinese martial arts, and add that with his rings of power, that he would have definitely been a very dangerous hand-to-hand threat to Iron Man. I mean, really dangerous. With combining pure physical skill with these almost magical powers, definitely would have been an extreme threat for Tony, and one that I would have been very interested in seeing how that fight would have played out, but instead, we got Mr. Hot Hands pretty much just doing the same thing, rinse and repeat of, I'm going to burn out Tony's suit, and he's going to get in another one. So, yeah, it could definitely still work, even with classic Mandarin. 18. I do not believe that Jon Favreau would have kind of had that cop-out at the end with Tony getting the shrapnel taken out of his heart. The whole big thing of Iron Man 1 and 2, both those movies, is that if Tony had tried to get the shrapnel removed from his heart by surgery or medical process, then it would have killed him. There's no way they could have gotten it out in time. It would have just pierced his heart and he would die. And then you're saying just at the end of the movie, like, I can have surgery anytime I want, and I'm going to get it out, and no more arc reactor for me. I'm just normal Tony Stark. What? You make the character of Tony Stark look like an idiot for the past 5 years since the events of the first Iron Man movie, where the whole big thing was that he couldn't get the shrapnel removed, that he needed the arc reactor. That was the big thing. And now it's just like, you look kind of like a dunce. So, yeah. Moving on, 19. Some more smart, witty humor, not as much excessive slapstick. I don't know about you guys, but I quite enjoyed the humor of the past two Iron Man movies. It was well paced. It was definitely prevalent in there, but it knew when there was no room for any humor, and it was smart and it was witty. However, in Iron Man 3, we got a lot, like almost every scene had a lot of humor, which was fun for a little bit, but then it gets a bit old. And it wasn't so much why I could find like witty humor. It was more of a kind of physical slapstick humor. Like the big thing, it always seemed like every scene there was something going on with the Mark 42 armor. Like, oh, it's not working. It hit a tree. It hit a car. It hit something, and it's all broken apart. Like, oh no, silly armor. It felt like it was unnecessary. It was funny one time, but then they overplayed it so many times, and it just grew old on me real fast. 20. I think that again, going back to Jon Favreau being a more of a classic Marvel Comics guy, that we would have seen a more more of what we seen in terms of an Iron Man suit design. And this is just a personal thing, but I was not a fan at all of the coloration of the Mark 42 armor. Obviously, gold was the prevalent color in that suit, which in the comics it's always been, unless you count like the first two suits he wore, which were just all solid one color. In the comics, when he's had red and gold in his armor, it's always been predominantly red with touches of gold, and that's a great look. But when you have an excess of gold, it just, I don't know, it's something about the way it looks. It just is rather off-putting. So I think that Jon Favreau would have stuck with a more classic Iron Man armor. Or maybe he would have given us another one from the comics. Like maybe he would have given us the Silver Centurion armor, which I believe we saw briefly in the final fight scene was the Silver Centurion. I think he was in it for all of 30 seconds. And that's another problem I have with the movie, is that you have all these great armors, but we don't get to see them because it just goes by so fast. So continuing on. There could have been I already mentioned that they could have connected it back to the Avengers, and they could have teased us Avengers 2 with like a possible Thanos connection, but they could have also done a possible Doctor Strange tease, which is Doctor Strange, and I'm not saying this would have been likely, but something that definitely I think would have been a possibility if Favreau had been directing, that we could have gotten a Doctor Strange tease. It's still a good bit of ways until we get a Doctor Strange movie. We're talking post-Avengers 2 until we get a Doctor Strange movie. But they could have, I don't know, maybe a post-credit scene where they mention, like, or we hear like a voice, saying like, oh, great, talking about a great magical disturbance or something, or offsetting the balance, or maybe like something like him looking into the eye of Agamotto or something. But then they would have to cast an actor to play Doctor Strange this early on. So definitely probably not likely, but it was a possibility. So I think that Favreau would have put that in consideration with the whole magical aspect of the Mandarin. So moving on, 23, and this was definitely a big one for me, is we would have gotten the classic rock anthems. Where was my AC/DC? Where was my Clash? Where was the rock and roll? That's been a big thing of the past two Iron Man movies, and even they reference it in the Avengers, of the whole kind of like, AC/DC element of Iron Man. Iron Man really is the superhero equivalent of a rock star. Tony loves the show, he loves the glamour, he loves making an entrance. And AC/DC, that's right up his alley. And it was a big part of the first two Superman movies, or not Superman, why am I saying Superman? Iron Man. It was a big thing of the first two Iron Man movies, the AC/DC, the Stark Expo. Say what you will about Iron Man 2, which again is not a perfect movie, but I still would prefer it over this. I love that opening, of the Stark Expo and the AC/DC music, him landing on the dramatic. It was awesome. And there was absolutely no rock and roll in this movie. What's up with that? A change of directors, that's what. A different taste in music, obviously. We got some kind of funky, modern hip-hop type sounding music, which I don't even know that just really did not feel at all like Iron Man to me. So, and that brings me into the next item on my list. And don't worry, we are getting very close to the end now. Is that continuity? It was vastly different styles. It's very different styles when comparing Iron Man 1 and 2 to Iron Man 3. Everything just feels different about it. The way it's shot, the music, obviously, the way it looks, it all feels very different. And I have a hard time feeling like it is an Iron Man movie. And also, it felt very odd when compared to the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And with the other Iron Man movies and the Avengers and stuff, it just doesn't feel like them. I thought that Joss Whedon did an incredible job with the Avengers, and especially when connecting all of these different individual movie franchises together in this one movie. They perfectly captured each aspect of what made them unique, all in that one movie. And so, that included the way that Iron Man felt, and so thus Iron Man 3 doesn't really feel like it fits in with that group. And I actually just thought of one more to the list, so let's talk about that, which I thought of was, where's my shield? Seriously, S.H.I.E.L.D. was a huge aspect of Iron Man 2. We had Nick Fury, we had Black Widow, we had Agent Coulson, which is still kind of like up in the air of whether he's alive or not, which Joss Whedon said that he's alive for the S.H.I.E.L.D. show, so let's hope he's alive in future Marvel movies, but I digress. So where's my S.H.I.E.L.D. in this movie? Did they just totally ignore the Mandarin threat? International terrorism? That's S.H.I.E.L.D.'s thing. They're an agency of super spies. Why aren't they investigating the Mandarin terrorist attacks? Why aren't they helping Tony out when he's missing, reported dead? Why aren't they searching the globe for him? And again, referencing to the Avengers, why didn't they at least mention, like, oh, Captain America is out looking for Tony Stark or helping join the search? Why is this so isolated? I don't know. I really don't know. And finally, got a little voice crack there. But finally, going out with a bang. This movie did not go out with a bang. It just ended in a short little fight of Pepper versus Killian. It felt very anticlimactic. It just didn't really feel like this. Okay, this is the epic conclusion to the epic final fight of Iron Man versus his villain in the third installment and the ending installment of a trilogy. If you're going to end with this big fight scene, which one of the things I did like about the movie is that the final fight scene was admittedly cool. Seeing all the different Iron Man armors fighting all the different volcano people, whatever. And the ending fight with Killian just really killed it for me. It was very anticlimactic, and I think that Favreau definitely would have gone out with something crazy. At the very least, it would have been a big explosion, because we know from Iron Man 2 that at least we would have gotten a big explosion. So, yeah, that's my list of things that I believe that Jon Favreau, had he been director of Iron Man 3, would have done differently, and stuff that he would have kept. And ultimately, this is the Iron Man 3 that I wish I had seen. It honestly is. At least it would have kept with the same style as the other Iron Man movies, and at least it would have given us a faithful adaptation of the Mandarin, which I actually place Iron Man 3 below X-Men 3, and which might be crazy to some of you guys, but at least X-Men 3 was faithful to its characters. Iron Man 3 was not. And I wish I had gotten this Iron Man movie. We didn't. Hopefully, Jon Favreau is given another chance to direct an Iron Man movie in the future. I really hope so, but by the box office reports, it looks like Iron Man 3 is making a ton of money, so unfortunately Shane Black is probably already back in the director's chair. So those are all my list of things that I wish I had seen in Iron Man 3, and I think that Jon Favreau would have done had he been given the chance to direct. So yeah, I know it's been a very long video, so I'm just going to end it here right now. Again, your thoughts and feedback are always welcome. Please tell me in the comment section below what you think. What you think Jon Favreau would have done differently had he been director. And pretty much, whatever. So, thank you guys for watching this video. I know it's been a very long one. And I definitely thank you guys for tuning in, to those of you who've been listening in this whole time. So, thank you guys for watching as always. This is JokerFett, signing out. Bye.